Failure is feedback, not finality. You see, most people hear the word failure and instantly collapse inside. Their shoulders drop, their breathing slows, their inner voice starts whispering, "See, I knew it wouldn't work." But the truth, my friend, is that failure is not the end. It's communication. It's life speaking directly to you, showing you what's not yet working, what still needs refining, and what version of you must evolve before you can handle the level you're asking for. Failure isn't a stop sign, it's a signal, a recalibration, a whisper from the universe saying, "You're close, adjust." The difference between people who achieve extraordinary success and those who give up after the first storm isn't talent, intelligence, or luck, it's meaning. The meaning they attach to failure determines everything. When most people fail, they make it mean, "I'm not enough." But the great ones, your Musks, your Oprahs, your Jordan-level performers, they interpret failure as data, as feedback. When something doesn't work, they don't say, "I failed." They say, "Interesting, I just discovered one more way it doesn't work." You see the shift. That shift in perspective is the dividing line between mediocrity and mastery. When a baby tries to walk and fall, but he says, "Well, walking's not for you, you failed," the baby doesn't stop. The baby falls, giggles, and tries again. Why? Because it hasn't yet learned the toxic idea of failure as identity. It hasn't attached meaning to the fall. But as adults, we do. We fall once, and we call ourselves a failure. That's the difference. You're not failing, you're learning how to walk in a new area of your life. The moment you change the story about what failure means, you take back your power. Because every emotion you feel, every action you take, every result you produce, it all starts with the story you tell yourself about what's happening. If your story is, "I failed, so I'm broken," you'll hesitate, you'll shrink, you'll play small. But if your story is, "I failed, so I'm growing," you'll move faster, think bigger, and act bolder. The event didn't change. Only your interpretation did. Let me tell you something, some of the greatest successes in human history are built on mountains of failure. Thomas Edison didn't fail 10,000 times, he discovered 10,000 ways that didn't produce light. Walt Disney was fired for lacking creativity. Steve Jobs was kicked out of his own company. These people didn't stop because failure didn't define them. It refined them. They understood that feedback is the seed of mastery. When life gives you feedback in the form of failure, you can do one of two things. You can resist it, or you can extract the lesson. When you resist it, you suffer. When you extract it, you grow. It's like going to the gym. You don't grow muscle by lifting air. You grow by lifting resistance. The burn is feedback that your muscle is adapting. Failure is that same burn, but for your mind, your character, your destiny. You might say, "But Tony, what if I've failed too many times?" And I'd tell you, no, you've practiced too many times. The only permanent failure is quitting. Everything else is a rep in the gym of greatness. Every mistake is a repetition that's strengthening your awareness, your patience, your resilience. So stop labeling your learning as loss. The person who learns fastest wins, and failure is the fastest teacher you'll ever meet. There's a part of you that's scared of failure because it's afraid of judgment. You worry about what people will say if you fall. But here's the truth. They're not thinking about you. They're too busy worrying about their own failures. You're letting imaginary critics control your destiny. Let that go. No one remembers the person who almost did something. They remember the one who kept going despite falling. The secret is to adopt a scientist's mindset. A scientist doesn't fail, they experiment. They test, measure, adjust, and test again. You're not failing at your dreams. You're experimenting with strategies for achieving them. And every failed experiment gets you closer to the formula that works. When you see failure that way, it loses its sting. You start to smile when something doesn't work because you know that means you've just found another clue. You don't have to love failure, but you must respect it because failure is feedback and feedback is growth. Every time you fall, ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? That one question transforms pain into progress. It takes you from self-pity to self-mastery. You can't always control the outcome, but you can always control the meaning. So when you fail next time, and you will, because everyone does, don't freeze, don't quit, don't doubt your worth. Pause, breathe, extract the lesson, and move forward. Remember, failure doesn't say you're done. It says you're becoming. And the moment you understand that, you'll stop fearing failure and start using it as your greatest fuel. Because the truth is, failure is not the end. It's the beginning of your next evolution. Shift from victim to creator. This is where transformation truly begins. Most people spend their lives trapped in a mindset where everything that happens to them feels like fate, like punishment, like proof that life is unfair. They say things like, why does this always happen to me? Why can't I ever get a break? If only things were different. That's the language of the victim. It's the story of someone who believes life is happening to them, not for them. And as long as you live in that story, you surrender your power. Because the moment you believe you're a victim, you also believe you're helpless. But here's the truth: life is not happening to you, it's responding to you. Every decision, every emotion, every pattern you repeat, these are signals you send out, and life mirrors them back. When you live as a creator, you stop asking, why me? And start asking, what can I create from this? That one question changes everything. It moves you from paralysis to power, from complaining to creating, from waiting to acting. Because a creator knows, no matter what happens, I still have a choice. Let me tell you something, sir, every single breakthrough you've ever had came when you stopped blaming and started owning. You can't control the economy, you can't control what people do, but you can always control your focus, your meaning, your energy. That's your creative power. Most people think creation is about building something outside of them, a business, a project, a relationship. But real creation starts inside. You create your results by the emotional state you live in. You can't build a dream from the energy of frustration, fear, or victimhood. You must shift your state, change your story, and then take massive action. Think of someone who inspired you, someone who turned pain into purpose. Maybe it's Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison and came out not bitter, but powerful. Maybe it's Viktor Frankl, who lost everything in a concentration camp and still found meaning in suffering. These people refused to let their circumstances define their identity. They became creators in the darkest places imaginable. Because creation isn't about what you have, it's about who you decide to be. When you live as a victim, you build walls. You protect your pain. You repeat the same story of how unfair life is, and that story becomes your prison. But when you live as a creator, you build bridges. You connect pain to purpose. You turn your wounds into wisdom. The energy you once spent complaining becomes the energy that fuels your next level. Because creation is movement, and victims don't move, they react. Here's what I want you to remember: your life changes the moment you take 100% responsibility for it. Not 99%, not I'll take responsibility, but they were wrong. No, you own all of it. The successes, the failures, the lessons, the emotions. That's the blame, that's freedom. Responsibility gives you power, because if you created the situation, you can also create the solution. And once you start living that truth, life begins to open in ways you never imagined. You've probably heard me say this before. Where focus goes, energy flows. When you focus on what's missing, you feel powerless. When you focus on what's possible, you feel inspired. The same event can destroy one person and awaken another. The difference is what they choose to focus on. A victim asks, what did I lose? A creator asks, what can I build from this? It's not positive thinking. It's powerful meaning making, because meaning creates emotion, and emotion drives action. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people lose their jobs on the same day. The victim says, that's it. Life's unfair. I'll never make it. They spend weeks drowning in frustration, telling everyone how bad things are. The creator says, this hurts, but maybe it's time. Maybe life is pushing me to grow, to start something new. That same energy turns into fuel. Same event, different meaning. One person collapses, the other evolves. That's the power of the creator mindset. Creation doesn't mean you never feel pain. It means you use pain as raw material. Every struggle, every rejection, every setback, it's clay in your hands. You get to shape it into something beautiful, meaningful, powerful. You can build a business, a message, a new version of yourself, but only if you stop seeing yourself as the victim of life and start seeing yourself as the artist of it. Remember, you're not your circumstances, you're the conscious force shaping them. The moment you realize that, the fear begins to fade, because now you know no matter what happens, you can respond. You can adjust, you can rebuild. Victims get stuck asking why. Creators ask, what now? The shift is subtle, but it's everything. So right now, take a deep breath and think about one area in your life where you've been playing victim. Maybe it's your career, your health, your relationships. What story have you been telling yourself about why it's not working? And then ask, what can I create from this? Because that question pulls you back into power. That question opens doors you couldn't see before. When you step into that space, when you move from victim to creator, you stop waiting for life to change. You become the change. You become the cause, not the effect. And in that moment, you're free, because no failure, no rejection, no challenge can hold you back once you realize you were never powerless. You were always the creator. The power of state, this is where everything begins. Every decision you've ever made, every success you've ever had, every failure you've ever repeated, all of it started with the state you were in at that moment. Your emotional state is the invisible force that drives your behavior, shapes your thoughts, and determines your destiny. It's not the events of your life that control you, sir. It's how you interpret and respond to those events. And that comes entirely from your state. You know, people often say, I want to change my life, but what they really need to do is change their state, because when you're in a peak state, when your mind, body, and emotions are aligned, you make bold decisions, you take massive action, you radiate certainty. But when you're in a low state, tired, fearful, uncertain, you hesitate, you procrastinate, and you shrink. The quality of your life is the quality of the emotional states you live in daily. Think about it. Have you ever had one of those days where you woke up tired, frustrated, already overwhelmed, and everything just seemed to go wrong? Someone cuts you off in traffic, your phone dies, you spill your coffee, and you say, see, it's just one of those days. But is it really? Or did your state create your experience of that day? Because on another day in a different state, confident, grateful, energized, the same events wouldn't even faze you. You'd laugh them off. You'd handle them with grace. The day didn't change, you did. That's the power of state. It's like the lens through which you experience reality. And here's the secret. You don't have to wait for something good to happen to feel good. You can create that state right now in an instant. How? By changing your physiology, your breath, your movement, your focus, your language. When you change your body, you change your chemistry. When you change your focus, you change your emotion. You're not your thoughts, you're the thinker. You can direct your mind and body to serve you instead of sabotage you. Let's take an example. A person faces failure. They lose a job, a deal, or a relationship. In a low state, they slump their shoulders, slow their breathing, focus on everything that went wrong. What happens? Their mind spirals. They start telling themselves, I'm not good enough. I'll never recover. That's a pattern, a state that produces paralysis. But if that same person stands tall, breathes deeply, claps their hands, looks up, says out loud, I've got this. This is my next step. Their energy changes instantly. They've shifted from a state of fear to a state of power. And in that new state, they can see solutions they couldn't before. State is everything. That's why athletes pump themselves up before a big game. It's why speakers like me move, shout, and engage our entire bodies before we walk on stage. Because emotion is created by motion. You can't be depressed while jumping up and down shouting, Wes, with your shoulders back and a smile on your face. Your physiology won't allow it. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need permission to shift your state. You can do it right now, wherever you are. So, let's be real. If you've been stuck, it's not because you lack potential. It's because you've been conditioning yourself into a limited state. You've been training your body and mind to live in patterns of hesitation, worry, or doubt. The way out isn't to wait for motivation. It's to move. The moment you take control of your state, you take control of your story. Here's what most people miss. Your state determines what memories and thoughts your brain accesses. When you're in a fearful state, your brain will only show you evidence of failure. It will replay every mistake you've ever made. But when you're in a powerful state, when your chest is open, your breathing is full, and your energy is alive, your brain brings up moments of victory, strength, and confidence. You literally become a different version of yourself based on your state. That's why when people say, I don't know what to do, it's almost never true. They know what to do. They're just in the wrong state to do it. Change your state, and the answers come rushing back. It's like turning the lights on in a dark room. Everything that was hidden suddenly becomes clear. The challenge is that most people live by default state, not designed state. They let their environment, their phone, or their past dictate how they feel. But if you want to create lasting change, you've got to decide, no matter what happens, I control my state. That's personal power. That's freedom. Because life will throw chaos at you. It will test you. But if you can hold a strong state in the storm, you don't just survive, you lead. I want you to imagine what your life would look like if you lived in a peak state more often. What would your relationships feel like if you approached them with energy and passion instead of fatigue and frustration? How much more effective would you be if every morning you conditioned your mind and body to feel unstoppable before you even started your day? You'd stop reacting to life and start creating it. You'd stop doubting and start deciding. The truth is, success isn't about never feeling fear or doubt. It's about mastering your state so those emotions no longer control you. When you learn to command your state, you command your future. Because in every moment, you're either creating your life consciously or being pulled by old patterns unconsciously. The power of state is the bridge between the two. So, the next time you face failure, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what state am I in right now? Because if you change your state, you'll change your story. And if you change your story, you'll change your life. That's the art of transformation. That's the power of mastering your state.